Welcome, dear listeners, to another episode of The Shadow Behind You, where the veil between the living and the forgotten thins to a whisper, and the echoes of erased histories claw their way back into the light. I'm your host, the one who lingers in the dim corners of memory, guiding you through tales that time itself has tried to bury. Tonight, we venture deep into the mist-shrouded heart of the Ozark Mountains, that rugged expanse of ancient hollows and twisted ridges where the earth seems to breathe with secrets long swallowed by the soil. Picture it now. The year is 1900, a time when the world was hurtling toward modernity, yet in the Ozarks, the old ways clung like ivy to crumbling stone. Railroads snaked through the valleys, bringing seekers of health and fortune to the mineral springs that bubbled from the ground like invitations from the underworld. Resorts sprang up like fleeting dreams, grand hotels promising rejuvenation amid the wild beauty of karst landscapes, where caves gaped like open mouths and sinkholes whispered of hidden depths. But among these, one establishment stood apart, its name now scrubbed from maps and memories, the Holloway Hotel, nestled in a remote hollow near what is now the fringes of Beaver Lake. Though back then, the waters hadn't yet risen to claim the land. The Holloway Hotel rose like a sentinel from the fog. Built by Elias Holloway, a man whose lineage traced back to the earliest settlers fleeing the crowded East, it was a marvel of Victorian grandeur amid the primal wilderness. Towering 3 stories of weathered timber and stone, its wraparound porches overlooked valleys where the morning mist hung heavy, concealing the jagged scars of old mining shafts and forgotten trails. Guests arrived by horse-drawn carriage or the newly laid tracks of the Frisco Railroad, drawn by tales of the hotel's private spring, a well said to hold waters so pure they could cure the ailments of body and soul. But purity, my friends, is often a mask for something far more sinister. The well in question wasn't just any spring. It was an anomaly, a forgotten fissure in the earth, hidden at the edge of the property beneath a canopy of gnarled oaks. Local folklore, whispered among the hill folk, spoke of it as the Whispering Well, a place where the Osage and Cherokee once performed rituals to appease spirits of the deep. By 1900, those stories had faded into superstition, dismissed by progress-hungry entrepreneurs like Elias. He enclosed the well in a quaint gazebo, marketing its waters as a miracle elixir. Little did he know, or perhaps he did, and chose to ignore, the shadows that stirred below. Our tale begins with a disappearance, as so many dark stories do. It was a crisp autumn evening in October 1900 when the first guest vanished. Her name was Amelia Voss, a young widow from St. Louis, seeking solace from her grief in the Ozarks' healing embrace. She was last seen wandering the hotel grounds at dusk, drawn toward the well by an inexplicable pull. Witnesses, fellow guests sipping bourbon on the porch, recalled hearing a faint melody, like a child's lullaby carried on the wind, emanating from the gazebo. Amelia approached, her silhouette fading into the twilight fog. And then, nothing. No scream, no splash, no trace. Search parties combed the woods for days, lanterns flickering like willow, the wisps, but Amelia Voss was gone, as if the earth had swallowed her whole. This was no isolated incident. Over the ensuing months, more souls followed her into oblivion. Families checked in, brimming with hope, only to leave fragments of themselves behind. Records of their stays were meticulously kept in the hotel's leather-bound ledger, yet within weeks those pages would yellow and fade, ink dissolving like mist in the sun. Names erased, photographs blurred, memories dimmed. It was as if history itself conspired to forget them. Whispers spread among the staff. Hillbillies and immigrants eking out a living. Of strange lights dancing over the well at midnight, of voices rising from its depths, calling out in tongues long dead. Why, you might ask, was this well forgotten, erased from history? The answer lies in the layers of silence that blanketed the Ozarks. In those days, the mountains were a refuge for the outcast, a labyrinth where feuds simmered and secrets festered. The Holloways, with their old blood ties to the land, guarded their fortune fiercely. Rumors of a curse, an ancient malediction tied to the well's unnatural depth, were quashed with bribes and threats. Official inquiries from county sheriffs were met with locked doors and fabricated alibis. By 1905, the hotel stood abandoned, its grandeur crumbling under vines, the well boarded over and left to the elements. Maps redrawn, deeds altered. The very existence of the Holloway Hotel slipped into oblivion. But shadows, dear listeners, have a way of persisting. In the archives of forgotten folklore, in the oral tales passed down by Ozark elders, fragments remain. I've pieced them together from yellowed newspapers, cryptic diaries, and the reluctant testimonies of descendants who still shiver at the mention of the name. Tonight, we unearth the disturbing secret of the Holloway Hotel's forgotten well, a tale of greed, ritual, and the insatiable hunger of the earth below. As we delve deeper, feel the chill creep up your spine, the weight of unseen eyes upon you. For in the Ozarks, the past doesn't die. It waits, patient and ravenous, in the dark. Imagine, if you will, the Ozark Mountains in the waning days of the 19th century, a tapestry of emerald hills rolling into shadowed valleys, where the air hangs thick with the scent of pine resin and damp earth. Rivers carve through limestone like veins through flesh, feeding springs that emerge crystal clear, yet tainted by the minerals of ancient seabeds. It was here, in a secluded bend near the White River, that Elias Holloway staked his claim. Elias was a man forged in the fires of ambition, born in 1852 to a family of Scotch, Irish settlers who had scratched a living from the rocky soil since the 1820s. He grew up hearing tales of the land's hidden wealth. The Ozarks were riddled with lead mines and zinc deposits, fortunes unearthed by hardy prospectors. But Elias dreamed bigger. He'd traveled east to Chicago, witnessing the opulence of the Gilded Age, and returned with visions of transforming his family's modest homestead into a beacon of luxury. In 1898, construction began on the Holloway Hotel. The site was chosen for its isolation and its secret and natural well, discovered by Elias's grandfather during a drought in the 1840s. Unlike the bubbling springs of nearby Eureka Springs, this well was still, its surface a mirror of inky blackness, plummeting to unknown depths. Local legends claimed it was a bottomless pit, a remnant of the karst underworld, where caves interconnected like a subterranean labyrinth. Elias's grandfather had capped it with stones, warning his kin to steer clear after a calf tumbled in and vanished without a sound. But Elias saw opportunity. He hired engineers to measure it. Ropes lowered 500 feet found no bottom, and proclaimed it a source of eternal waters, rich in minerals that promised vitality. By spring 1900, the hotel opened its doors. A grand affair it was, 50 rooms adorned with velvet drapes and brass fixtures, a ballroom echoing with the strains of a string quartet, and dining halls serving venison and wild berries harvested from the hills. Guests arrived from afar, industrialists from Kansas City, ailing socialites from Memphis, even European nobility seeking the American wilderness. Among the first was Dr. Harlan Thorpe, a Boston physician skeptical of the well's curative claims, but intrigued by its geological anomaly. Accompanying him was his daughter Lydia, a spirited 22-year-old with a penchant for sketching the rugged landscapes. The staff, a motley crew of locals, included Maeve O'Connor, an Irish immigrant who served as head housekeeper. Maeve had her own superstitions, brought from the old country, tales of fairy wells that lured the unwary. She noticed peculiarities from the start. Mirrors in the rooms fogging without cause, candles guttering in still air, and a persistent chill near the gazebo enclosing the well. Guests reported dreams of falling, endless plummets into darkness, waking with soil under their nails as if they'd clawed at the earth in sleep. Tension built subtly at first. In June 1900, a miner named Jedediah Crow, staying while prospecting nearby, complained of whispers from the well, like children laughing but twisted. He told Elias over whiskey. Elias dismissed it as moonshine delirium. But that night, under a full moon, Jedediah was seen staggering toward the gazebo, his lantern swinging wildly. The next morning his room was empty, bed unruffled. Searchers found his hat perched on the well's rim, but no body, no splash marks. The ledger entry for his stay began to fade, ink bleeding into the paper like water stains. More followed. A family from Little Rock, the Beaumonts, arrived in July. Father, mother, and 2 children. The youngest, a boy of 8 named Tommy, was drawn to the well, claiming it, sang to him. One afternoon, while his parents napped, Tommy slipped away. Screams echoed from the gazebo. Maeve rushed to find the boy teetering on the edge. Arms outstretched as if embracing the void, she pulled him back, but that night the entire family vanished. Their carriage remained in the stable, luggage unpacked. Elias ordered the staff to silence, paying them extra to forget. But Maeve confided in her diary, "The well hungers. It takes not just bodies, but souls, erasing them from the world." As summer waned, Elias's wife, Clara Holloway, began to unravel. A delicate woman from St. Louis society, she had borne 3 children, but only one survived infancy, their son Nathaniel, aged 12. Clara spoke of visions, shadowy figures rising from the well, their faces twisted in agony, beckoning her. Elias, desperate to preserve his empire, consulted a local shaman, an aged Cherokee descendant named Old Tom, who lived in a cabin on the ridge. Old Tom warned, "That well ain't natural. It's a tear in the world where the ancestors tossed their curses. Blood was spilled here long ago. Osage rituals to seal away the dark. You've uncorked it." Undeterred, Elias pressed on, hosting lavish galas to drown the rumors. But the vanishings escalated. In September, Dr. Thorpe himself disappeared while sampling the waters. Lydia found his notebook by the well, pages filled with frantic scrawls. The depth calls, echoes of voices not human. It erases. Lydia, grief-stricken, confronted Elias, demanding answers. He confessed a family secret. His grandfather hadn't just found the well. He'd used it to dispose of rivals during the mining wars of the 1870s. Bodies dumped, never recovered. The well keeps secrets. Elias murmured, but now it wants more. As autumn leaves turned blood red, the hotel's atmosphere thickened with dread. Guests whispered of apparitions in the halls, pale forms gliding through walls, their eyes hollow as the well itself. Maeve overheard Nathaniel, the Holloway boy, muttering to invisible far-for-ins near the gazebo. "They say the well remembers," he said. "It wants us all." The Ozark's winter of 1900 descended like a shroud, blanketing the Holloway Hotel in frost and isolation. Snow dusted the ridges, turning the landscape into a monochrome nightmare where every shadow seemed alive. Guests dwindled, but those who remained were the desperate or the foolhardy, seekers of miracles who ignored the growing pall of fear. Elias Holloway, his face gaunt from sleepless nights, doubled down on promotions, advertising the well's waters as elixir of eternal youth. But the well had other plans. It began with subtle hauntings. Lydia Thorpe, now a reluctant resident, as she searched for clues to her father's fate, awoke to find her sketches altered. Innocent landscapes now depicted writhing figures emerging from the well's maw. Maeve O'Connor, patrolling the halls with a lantern, heard scratching from beneath the floors, as if something clawed upward from the earth. Nathaniel Holloway, the boy, grew withdrawn, spending hours staring into the well, murmuring responses to unheard questions. Clara, his mother, locked herself in her room, raving about the erased ones, returning. Then came the night of the great storm in December. Thunder rolled through the hollows like artillery, lightning illuminating the hotel in stark flashes. A group of travelers, 5 in total, stranded by flooded roads, sought shelter. Among them was Reverend Silas Grant, an itinerant preacher with a Bible scarred from frontier revivals. As the group gathered in the ballroom for warmth, the winds howled, rattling windows. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a chill wind swept through, carrying the scent of wet stone and decay. From the gazebo outside, a wail rose, inhuman, piercing. The guests rushed to the porches, lanterns held high. There, illuminated by lightning, stood figures around the well, translucent shapes. Dripping with water, their forms twisted and elongated. One resembled Amelia Voss, her dress sodden, arms reaching out. Another was Jedidiah Crow, his miner's pickaxe dangling limply. They didn't speak, but their eyes, black voids, conveyed accusation. Reverend Grant, Bible in hand, approached, chanting exorcisms. But as he neared, the ground trembled, and a tentacle of water erupted from the well, coiling around his ankle. He was dragged screaming into the depths, his cries echoing long after he vanished. Panic ensued. Elias barricaded the doors, but the hauntings infiltrated. In the kitchens, pots clattered as invisible hands hurled them. Upstairs, guests found their belongings rearranged, personal mementos defaced with muddy fingerprints. Lydia, investigating the attic, discovered hidden compartments in Elias's study, old journals from his grandfather detailing the well's use as a disposal site. Not just rivals, entire families vanished during land disputes, their bodies fed to the abyss to erase claims. The well devours history, the journal read. It hungers for more to keep the balance. Clara Holloway's madness peaked that winter. She confided in Maeve that the well was a portal, opened by ancient blood rites. The Osage, she claimed, had sealed it with sacrifices, but the Holloway's greed reopened it. One night, Clara slipped out, drawn inexorably to the gazebo. Nathaniel followed, crying for her. Elias, alerted by screams, arrived to see his wife perched on the rim. Whispering, "They call me home," she leaped. But instead of a splash, a gurgling laugh emanated from below. Nathaniel, traumatized, babbled of the shadow behind, an entity that erased the unworthy. By spring 1901, the hotel was a ghost of itself. Remaining guests fled, spreading tales that were quickly suppressed. Elias, broken, attempted to seal the well with dynamite from nearby mines. The explosion shook the hollow, collapsing the gazebo, but the well remained, a scarred crater oozing black water. Strange occurrences persisted, animals avoiding the site, plants withering in rings around it. Nathaniel, now the sole heir, inherited the curse. He grew into a reclusive man, guarding the ruins, but vanishings continued sporadically. Hikers, lovers, curiosity seekers drawn by whispers. Years past the hotel decaying in 1905, a fire, suspected arson by Elias to end it all, consumed the structure, leaving charred timbers. Elias perished in the blaze, his body never fully identified. Nathaniel survived, but records of the family faded. Deeds altered, newspapers retracted stories, as if an invisible hand scrubbed the Holloway name from existence. The well, overgrown with briars, became the forgotten well, its location lost to all but the most persistent law keepers. Yet echoes lingered. In the 1920s, when Montaigne nearby flooded under Beaver Lake's rise, divers reported unnatural currents near the old Holloway site, as if something pulled at them. Whispers of the well persisted in Ozark ballads, veiled warnings to the unwary. To truly grasp the chilling essence of the Holloway Hotel's forgotten well, we must delve into the real tapestry of Ozark history and folklore, a blend of fact and shadow that lends our tale its unsettling authenticity. The Ozarks, spanning parts of Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, are a geological wonder of an uplifted plateau of ancient limestone, riddled with caves, springs, and sinkholes formed over millennia. By 1900, this landscape was a frontier transformed, yet steeped in primal mysteries. Settlement began in earnest in the early 1800s, with Scotch, Irish, and German immigrants pouring in after the Louisiana Purchase. They brought folk traditions from Appalachia, mingling with Native American legacies. The Osage and Cherokee, displaced by treaties like the 1825 Osage Cession, left behind spiritual sites, sacred springs and burial grounds. Legends speak of bottomless waters like Blue Springs near Eureka Springs, where a sudden eruption in the 1800s destroyed a Spanish mining camp, its depths unsounded at 500 feet. Such phenomena echo our well-cast features where underground rivers connect vast caverns, swallowing objects and people without trace. The resort boom of the late 1800s capitalized on these springs. Eureka Springs, founded in 1879, became a health mecca with over 60 mineral sources, attracting thousands seeking cures for ailments like rheumatism. The Crescent Hotel, built in 1886, mirrors our Holloway, a grand Victorian edifice, later infamous as a cancer cure hospital under charlatan Norman Baker in the 1930s, where patients vanished amid quackery. Ghosts haunt its halls today. Apparitions of Victorian ladies, a stonemason who fell during construction. Nearby Montaigne, established in 1901 by William Coyne Harvey, was a utopian resort with log hotels and amphitheaters, now submerged under Beaver Lake after the 1960s dam. Divers report eerie ruins, currents tugging like unseen hands, fueling tales of drowned spirits. Mining history adds layers of darkness. Lead and zinc booms in the 1870s-1900s scarred the land with shafts and tailings. Disputes were violent, feuds like the Slicker Wars of the 1840s, where vigilantes slicked rivals with whips, bodies dumped in sinkholes. The Devil's Den, in Webster County, a massive sinkhole described as bottomless, was said to contain flammable substances and serve as a portal. Disappearances were common, miners lost in collapses, settlers vanishing in blizzards or Indian raids. Folklore filled the voids. The Ozark Howler, a horned beast with glowing eyes, lurking in hollows; the Snorfus, an albino deer spirit jumping treetops; omen of doom; the Blue Man, a wildman hurling boulders since the 1860s. Cultural trauma infused these tales. Post-Civil War, the Ozarks were a guerrilla warfare hotbed. Bushwhackers like Quantrill's raiders left scars of betrayal and loss. Vanishing families weren't myth. Many fled or were erased in records during Reconstruction. Native displacements added curses. The Trail of Tears echoed in stories like The Last of the Osages, where prophecies foretold loss via supernatural arrows. The Great Fire Spirit, a natural gas flame worshipped by Neosho Indians, vanished with their exodus, symbolizing erased sacred sites. By 1900, progress clashed with superstition. Railroads like the Frisco connected isolated communities, bringing outsiders to resorts. Yet, hillfolk clung to oral traditions, ballads of lost loves, haunted wells. Vance Randolph, the great folklorist of the 1920s, 1950s, collected hundreds witches in hollers, ghosts on ridgelines. The spook light near Joplin, a mysterious orb since the 1880s, defies explanation, much like lights over our well. The Albino Farm in Springfield, tied to 1960s urban legends of murders and bridges haunted by hatchet men, roots in earlier tales of outcasts. In this context, the Holloway Hotel emerges as plausible fiction. A family like the Holloways, ambitious settlers exploiting land, fits the era's entrepreneurs. Their well, inspired by Blue Springs or Devil's Den, embodies the Ozarks' eerie authenticity, places where nature devours history. Erased records, common in a region of oral culture where floods, fires, and feuds destroyed documents. Our tale blends these, a cursed institution amid vanishing bloodlines, haunting us with the question, what other secrets lie buried in the Ozarks' depths? Beneath the surface of our tale lies a well of symbolic and psychological depths, reflecting universal fears that transcend the Ozarks' misty ridges. The forgotten well serves as a metaphor for the abyss, the unknowable void within the earth and the human psyche. In Jungian terms, it's the shadow archetype, the repressed aspects of self and society that, when ignored, erupt with vengeful force. The Holloways' greed uncorks this shadow, mirroring how colonial expansion in America suppressed native histories, only for them to resurface as hauntings. Thematically, erasure from history speaks to cultural trauma. In the Ozarks, as in broader American narrative, marginalized voices, native, immigrant, poor, are systematically forgotten. The well's devouring of bodies and records symbolizes this, how power structures erase inconvenient truths. Consider the Osage rituals. Their displacement echoes real genocides, where sacred sites were desecrated, birthing curses. Our story connects to collective guilt, where the land itself rebels, demanding remembrance. Vanishings evoke the fear of oblivion, a primal dread in human nature, the anxiety that our existence could be wiped clean, leaving no trace. Psychologically, the well embodies the uncanny, familiar yet alien, a domestic spring turned monstrous. Freud's Unheimlich resonates here. The Holmes Hotel becomes unhomely through repressed secrets. Guests' dreams of falling tap into vertigo of the subconscious, where buried traumas like the Holloway's murders manifest. The calling voices suggest siren, like a lure of the forbidden, tying to myths like the Greek Styx or Celtic fairy wells, portals to other worlds luring the unwary with promises only to trap them. Universal fears of the unknown amplify this. In an era of rapid change, 1900s industrialization, the Ozarks represented a holdout of wilderness where modernity clashed with ancient forces. The hotel's decay symbolizes hubris, man's attempt to tame nature, only for nature to reclaim. This connects to ecological trauma, karst landscapes, fragile and interconnected, warn of environmental erasure, as seen in Montigny's flooding. Human nature's dark side, greed, denial, fuels the curse as Elias ignores warnings embodying the tragic flaw of overreach. Symbolically, water in the well represents memory's fluidity, clear yet distorting, preserving or dissolving. Fading ledger ink evokes how history is rewritten by victors, leaving ghosts as the only witnesses. Shadow behind ties to existential dread, the feeling of being pursued by one's past. A theme in Gothic literature like Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher, where familial curses doom descendants. Culturally, this explores American Gothic isolated settings breeding madness, as in Faulkner's South or King's Maine. Ozark folklore, with its howlers and spook lights, underscores regional identity, resilient yet haunted by loss. The story probes human complicity. Staff's silence for paychecks mirrors societal inaction against injustice. Ultimately, it questions reality. Are the hauntings supernatural or projections of guilt? This ambiguity leaves us haunted, confronting our own erased shades. Our journey through the shadows of the Holloway Hotel draws to a close. The mist of the Ozarks lingers in our minds, a chilling reminder that some secrets refuse to stay buried. We've traversed the rise and ruin of a cursed institution where ambition met the abyss and history itself was devoured by the forgotten well. Elias Holloway's dream, born of greed and denial, unleashed forces that erased not just lives, but legacies. Families vanished, records faded, the very land conspiring to forget. Yet, in the echoes of folklore and the whispers of survivors like Nathaniel's descendants, the tale persists. The well, now lost amid overgrown hollows or perhaps submerged under Beaver Lake's waters, waits. Divers and hikers still report anomalies, unnatural pulls in the currents, faint lullabies on the wind, shadows that trail just out of sight. Is it mere imagination, or does the entity, the shadow behind, still hunger, seeking to pull us into oblivion? Dear listeners, as you turn off the light tonight, ponder this: what forgotten wells lurk in your own history? What erased truths claw at the edges of memory, waiting for a crack to emerge? In the Ozarks, they say the mountains remember what men forget. Sleep well, but listen closely. For the shadow behind you may be closer than you think.